Buenos días. Yo, Eli Theodor, con mi Y684-864-0J, manifiesto que a las 15 horas del día 14 de junio de 2020 se inicia la grabación de la prueba oral correspondiente a la asignatura de trabajo final de grado. Autorizo a la Fundación Privada de Escuelas Universitarias de Inverness a tratamiento de mis datos personales, incluidas a la voz e imagen, para la evaluación de mis conocimientos. El plazo de conservación de dichos datos será de un año. Comparison of the immediate effects of posterior shoulder self-massage versus self-stretching on glenohumeral internal rotation deficit in aerial circus artists by Eli Theodor. This paper recognizes glenohumeral internal rotation deficit GERD in aerial circus artists, aerialists, as a risk factor for shoulder injury, and proposes a comparison between two self-administered interventions. Aerialists are acrobats who perform using aerial equipment such as the trapeze. The sport requires upper limb strength, control, mobility, and stability. GERD was identified as a modifiable relevant risk factor for these athletes, as well as two efficient interventions, instrumented massage and stretching. This paper therefore piloted the investigation of immediate effects of applying an instrumental self-massage to the posterior shoulder using a lacrosse ball hand fork massage versus whole release self-stretching hand fork stretching of internal rotation and horizontal adduction in the population of 17 asymptomatic aerialists with GERD. An exhaustive literature search was conducted using Google Scholar, PubMed, and ScienceDirect, yielding a total of 68,970 documents. Results were filtered, screened for duplicates, and critically read, which resulted in 25 journal articles being incorporated into the bibliography. A further 37 publications were encountered using manual search, of which 26 were selected. Circus injury epidemiological studies were utilized regardless of poor academic quality due to the scarcity of data on the subject, and relevant criticism was noted in the literary review. The physiology and biomechanics of the shoulder during aerial acrobatics is not described in the literature. To give a brief description, aerialists use fixed hanging apparatuses such as silks, rope trapeze, leroy hoop straps, or personalized creations, or swinging apparatuses such as flying trapeze, cradle, cloud swing, etc. They may also perform in a duo or trio. As a non-competitive performance art, skills are diverse and emphasis is aesthetic and creative. The basic elements are hanging, pulling, pushing, balancing, inverting, and climbing, mostly relying on the arms. Shoulder conditions have a prevalence of 7 to 10% in the general population and higher in upper body sports. To date, aerialist shoulder injuries are only described in a single research paper by Hakim et al., who reported that 50% of upper limb injury in the aerialists occur in the shoulder, and that 16% of all injuries in circus school students occur in the shoulder. A high rate of shoulder pain is clearly evident in similar sports such as female collegiate gymnastics with 59%, calisthenics with 41.9%, CrossFit with 30.8%, and climbing or bouldering with 17%. The common injuries and their frequencies in aerialists are unknown. Proposed mechanisms are overuse and falling. Reported in similar sports are rotator cuff and labral pathology, biceps tendonitis, subacromial pain syndrome, multidirectional instability and capsular injuries, fractures, dislocations, subluxations. The frequency of fractures was reported by Schreier et al. To be a low rate occurrence in circus school students and professional aerialists. Implication of injury, time lost, and medical attention needed vary in reports. A demonstrated tendency in circus artists is to underreport and to undertreat. Continue to train and perform through non-severe upper limb injury, risking recurrence and exacerbation. Known intrinsic risk factor for circus artists include being over 20 years of age, being female, and practicing aerials, which is important seeing as professional aerialists are predominantly adult females. There is no consensus on modifiable upper limb risk factors in overhead sports. Biomechanical alteration of the shoulder girdle are considered as either adaptive or pathological, depending on the sport and the author, namely GERD, SD, and PSD. These describe an alteration to the ranges of movement, muscle balance, and dynamic activation. Internal rotation loses range of motion and gains strength, while external rotation gains range of motion and becomes weaker. This is often accompanied by posterior shoulder immobility, anterior hyperlaxity, humeral retroversion, and dynamic discoordination in the scapular muscles due to over and underdevelopment in the shoulder girdle muscles. So does instability. These are considered responses to repetitive rotatory overhead throwing motion, such as baseball pitching. Throwing is completely absent from aerials, which is why I argue that GERD cannot be considered a harmless adaptation in these athletes, and why I chose to address it as a risk factor. Instrument-assisted soft tissue mobilization was found moderately favorable compared with self-stretching. The effective stretches are the sleeper and horizontal adduction stretch with scapular stabilization. The most effective stretching method appears to be hold relaxed. Therefore, the hypothesis was that self-massage will prove more effective than self-stretching. The study compares two intervention group without a control group. The intervention was a single event. The two intervention groups were self-stretching and instrumented self-massage with a lacrosse ball. Assignment to the group was randomized using the website random.org/list, which is an online randomization algorithm. 14 females and 3 male subjects were included out of 124 volunteers who responded to an online invitation to participate using the demonstrated criteria. Participants' baseline demographic and anthropometric characteristics all had a normal distribution except for weight. Passive range of motion measurements were taken immediately before and after the intervention for internal rotation, external rotation, and horizontal adduction for both groups. This is the baseline data. And this is a questionnaire which all the subjects had to complete. Graphic demonstration of age, weight, sorry, let me go back one slide. So this is a graphic demonstration of age, weight, height, chronic shoulder pain, and whether or not subjects routinely stretch. Note that there are more participants who routinely stretch who are randomly assigned to the stretching group, as well as more who experience chronic shoulder pain. The main objective of the study was to evaluate the immediate efficiency of both interventions on glenohumeral internal rotation range of motion. Secondary objectives and variables are specified in the table. Now, due to the COVID-19 quarantine in Catalonia at the time of the research, it had to be conducted via video conference. Participants were asked to set up a conference with the investigator in a specific way and to have a partner assist them by passively placing their arm at internal and external rotation and horizontal abduction while fixating the scapula in order for images to be extracted from the video conference and analyzed by the investigation post-conference. Then the average of every 3 measurements was recorded for each variable. Both groups received a standardized explanation on how to perform either a hold relaxed stretching or internal rotators and horizontal adductors, or how to perform self-massage using a lacrosse ball to the posterior shoulder of the capsule. The posterior capsule of the shoulder. Each group was instructed to spend exactly 5 minutes stretching or massaging per arm to apply tolerable force and to take as many breaks as they felt necessary. Internal rotation, passive range of motion in both arms improved similarly and significantly in both intervention groups. All other comparison yielded insignificant changes except for total arc of motion, which is fully explained by the internal rotation range of motion gain. External rotators did not show any significant change regardless of intervention method. Horizontal adduction showed a borderline significant effect regardless of intervention. A summary of results with post-hoc power is available in the table before you. The study has critical limitations which genuinely weaken its findings, the most important one being that each participant had an assistant who was a partner that lived with them. Steps were taken to minimize this effect, such as instructing the participants not to speak to one another, but some variation in measurement positions are unavoidable. Contrary to the hypothesis that self-massage will prove more effective, both interventions seemed equal. We may hypothesize as to why that might be and how to apply this knowledge, but the most important question raised by this study, in my personal opinion, is why do aerialists even develop GERD at all? It is not explained by our current conventional understanding of GERD as a result of repetitive throwing. This and other questions worthy of further investigation do arise from this modest pilot. However, the immediate transference of the results to the clinic is simple and costless. Thank you very much, and please feel free to direct any questions you have to the email and telephone number that I posted at the beginning of the presentation. Thank you very much and have a lovely day.